Here we go. One Horse Town. All right. Hello. Welcome back to One Horse Town podcast with myself, the real Mr. Jaime, aka Jaime V. With me, as always, is my companion, Django. He's asleep right behind me. You can't see him whatsoever. But here we are. Thank you for stopping by. I know you're just trying to pass through, but in the meantime, I'll try to fill this time with a little bit of story, a little bit of catch up. Right now, honestly, it's super hot. I can barely handle it. It's really, pushing me right now. Like I feel worn, and I want to do this podcast really bad right now, but it's like, it's wearing me down. I'm staying hydrated. Of course, you got to drink some water, and I have some Red Bull on the side, watermelon, just in case. But here we are again, episode 8. If you're listening to this, if you're watching this, hopefully a vlog will come side by side with it. Episode 8 of this podcast, and then episode 18 of that vlog. Please go watch it. Please go check it out. I believe it's the 100 part 2, 100 movie list part 2. Go check that out. There's some very interesting stuff in there, and I've been thinking a lot about my movies and which ones should qualify for the top list. And I wrote down some stuff the other day. This is my notebook. It's in it's my latest notebook. I have so many notebooks. But let's see. We got vlog. Boom. Okay. So vlog 18. My top movies part 2. I have to add Good Time to the list. Good Time with Robert Pattinson. Someone was borrowing it. I think my sister was borrowing it. That's going to be added to the list of the top 100. Fantastic film. I think one of Robert Pattinson's best performances by far. He's been in a lot of movies, but I think he's underrated, especially because of Twilight. And I'll give him, when I watch Twilight, I despise it. There's just some awful performances in it. I don't know. It's just not very good. And then after that, he got like a bad stigma of like being this type of actor or character. But he has range, and I'll give him that. And of course, it's directed by the Safdie brothers, who directed Uncut Gems. Go check that out too. Adam Sandler's his latest film besides Hubie Halloween on Netflix. But let's get back to the list. So the movies I've been thinking about a lot lately, I'm sure you've heard me say it before on the vlog or on different pieces of content. The Social Network is definitely going to make the top 10. No doubt. The Social Network is one of my favorite films of all time. It's almost a perfect film. I rarely use this word, perfect, but that film it's very, very close because it's not only made by one of the best directors working right now, but also one of the best writers working right now. And it touches on a subject that is so current right now. The social media kind of world, like Facebook is kind of like the root of that, I think. I mean, there was other stuff before, but Facebook kind of just did this thing that was different. And then of course Instagram comes along, and people are using Twitter a lot more, and Snapchat, and so on and so forth. So the social net, I mean, there's so much more I have to say about the Social Network, and we'll get to that once my list comes down to the top 10. Like, I'm going to go into my top, like every film will have hopefully some sort of content, and me talking about how this film fits where it's categorized, and the reasons I like it, the reason it made the list. So besides that, Flight by Robert Zemeckis, also one of my favorite films of all time, with Denzel Washington. I think he gives a great performance as well, playing an alcoholic who's not willing to admit that he's an alcoholic. And he's a pilot. His plane spoiler alert, but his plane crashes in the beginning of the film. And before getting on the plane, he decides to do some, cocaine, probably smoke some weed, maybe drink a little bit too. But it wasn't his fault. It was a mechanical error of the plane. And throughout the film, he has to battle not only like his choices, choosing to drink and the outcomes of that, but also has to battle what I guess the core, or like what's supposed to happen, who's to blame, is it the plane or is it the pilot, and there's people fighting on both sides trying to find out the truth. So Flight, definitely a great film. And actually Flight, the little interesting thing about I think about Flight too is that Robert Zemeckis directed this film. He shares the same birthday as me. And Robert Zemeckis, the film he'd made just before Flight, I believe, was The Polar Express. And I mean, I could be wrong, but this was like the first live action film, I think, since Castaway. I think. I can't be positive on that, but great film. Lately, I've been thinking about, I've been watching a lot of Harry Potter. I have the whole set. I've been watching a lot of Harry Potter, and I underestimated Harry Potter as a kid. I am a big Star Wars fan. I was a big Star Wars fan as a kid, more than Harry Potter. I thought Harry Potter was okay, but now as an adult watching Harry Potter, it hits so much different. There's so much more I have to say about Harry Potter as a whole, and each movie, each like episode series, I suppose, they all have something very interesting and unique to say about childhood and adulthood, and I guess like the difficulties that were thrust into a world that we can't control, that adults control. So it's very interesting. I have a lot more to say about Harry Potter, but I think not all the Harry Potter movies made the list, but quite a few. Probably Prisoner of Azkaban, probably Goblet of Fire. Maybe The Half-Blood Prince. So let's move on. A movie I've been thinking a lot about that I think I haven't paid attention to that much is American Psycho with Christian Bale. There have been a lot of clips I've seen lately on Instagram and TikTok of American Psycho, and the performance that Christian Bale gives in that movie. It's so good. It's like I don't really agree with narration in film, but this one in particular did an interesting job to give like an inside look at what a person like this, how they think. Like there's a few scenes where he's maybe like in the bar and you see a different side of what he would actually say to the bartender, but I don't think that's the case. In reality, he's probably saying something very different. But that movie I have to rewatch to get more into it and, the themes and whatnot. But it's a little bit funny too, and just the way he interacts with other people and the things he says. So let's move on. Another film here, The Graduate. I've been thinking a lot about The Graduate and Dustin. Like it's mostly, the films that I've been thinking about, they range from an assortment of things of why I like it. The big ones I've noticed lately with some of these two here, American Psycho and The Graduate, are mostly the performances by the main character, Dustin Hoffman in particular, his being his first film, The Graduate. And The Graduate is such an iconic film. Like I wasn't born during that time, but as a filmmaker and someone who loves films, there's a list of movies that you have to watch, right? They're like embedded in American culture, and The Graduate is definitely one of those movies. It's iconic. Of course, the classic shot of the under Mrs. Robinson's leg, and you can see Dustin Hoffman's character, Ben, just standing in the middle. It's such a fascinating film because it really goes into the scope of like you're done with college, you're done with school. What do I do now? Should I go to graduate school? It's kind of like I'm trying to find the next thing to do and to keep me occupied. And so he finds an affair. And along the way, of course, he falls in love with Mrs. Robinson's daughter, Elaine, and goes on a whole tangent about that. And I mean, it's just fascinating. Just when you see the end, of course. I mean, I'm sure you've seen. I'm spoiling it here if you haven't. The Graduate. At the end, of course, you have Ben and you have Elaine sitting in the back of the bus, and they've just gotten away, and they're finally together. But you can see in their faces, it's kind of the fun's worn out. It's kind of almost a little bit of regret, and was this the right thing to do? And it's kind of over now, and that there's this kind of spark is gone. It doesn't say explicitly that, but I mean, that's what the magic of film. That's why they're so powerful, and the reason I love these films and the reason they're on this list is because there's these certain images, and they get across. It's up to you to discover what the filmmaker is trying to get across, and I think that's the beautiful part about it. So the next film, this is a movie I've watched a numerous amount of times, like The Social Network. I watched it sometime in my senior year for the first time, and I was obsessed with it for like a week, and that's American Beauty. Now, some people might disagree with my decision here or my choice, but I don't care. I know Kevin Spacey's in it, and I know the controversy behind him, but in my opinion, let's not think about that kind of stuff. I'm thinking about the art of the film. Okay, the characters in this film, and I think that Kevin Spacey's performance is fantastic in this film, and he deserves his Oscar for it. And besides that, though, it's not even just his performance that makes this movie good. It's almost everything. The direction, the music, the lighting is phenomenal. Especially coming from a first-time director, Sam Mendes. He was a theater director at first, coming over to film. This is his first film in 1999, I believe. He'd won Best Picture and Best Director. First-time director. And I can't recall the cinematographer right now, but he did a fantastic job. I think it was Conrad, something, I can't remember. He did a fantastic job, but the lighting and the music too, and it just set this tone of like this perfect suburbia, this perfect American life of way of living, husband and wife and child with a kind of a cookie cutter house, rosebud garden in the front, and trying to put on this image of we're perfect. This is what everyone should want. You want to work in a cubicle, 9 to 5, this and that. You want to get paid. You drive a car. You pay that car insurance. And you have a fancy dinner at 6 o'clock with lovely music. And, you have this image. And it almost reminds me of Breaking Bad as well with, can't remember Kevin Spacey's character's name. Lester. So when Lester, when he sees this girl the first time at his daughter's cheerleading basketball game thing, he sees this girl and he instantly kind of falls in love with her. Like an idea. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I mean, there's this fantastic sequence in the film, how it's cut together and the rosebuds coming out from her chest and the music playing. And then this idea kind of builds in you. I'm sure some of us have experienced it when we meet a new person, and we're kind of like, wow, I would do anything to get with that person. Not only like to have sex with them or, whatever, but just to be with that person. Like, what would you do? Like, I mean, would you get fit, lift some weights if you knew that they wanted to be like with someone who was more fit, had some more strength? You probably would. And this is what happens with Lester. He gets infatuated and he starts doing more. He betters himself for this person. And it's just a fascinating kind of character study. Meanwhile, there's B plots. There's a lot of stuff going on in this film. And I think it's fascinating. Go give it a watch, American Beauty. There's more I have to say, and I'll get more in depth about, this is just like a little snippet. I hope you're enjoying this. I get very, very excited about film, and I'm so happy to do it here on this podcast. So let's continue. The next film I have been thinking a lot about as well is The Dark Knight Rises. Now, we all know that The Dark Knight is a top-notch film, probably one of the best films of all time, The Dark Knight, with, of course, Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker. And of course, Christopher Nolan at the helm with the taking on the Batman series and kind of giving it a little bit more grit. And Christian Bale's performance as well. I mean, he does a fantastic job. Always does an awesome job. But besides The Dark Knight, I think The Dark Knight Rises, the reason I really like this movie, it's really the story of Batman and how they kind of tie everything together. And I really like the idea of a Batman who's at the end of his run and how Batman can be beat even though he's stubborn. Because I think in The Dark Knight, one of the best scenes, one of my favorite scenes of all time from The Dark Knight Rises is when he first fights Bane in the sewers. And it's the reason it's so good is because as compared to other Batman fights or other sequences that we've seen in movies, there's usually dramatic music playing, punches thrown, it's kind of like, the hero's not going to die. Nothing bad is going to happen. But in this instance, when he first faces Bane, he can't be beat. Bane is like, when you put him up against guys like Ra's al Ghul and Scarecrow, mob people, right? And then you put him against the Joker, more mind games, of course. But then you have Bane, who's like physically and mentally ready to face Batman. And he's learned everything from the same teacher. They're taught by the same person. But Batman went and followed a different philosophy, of course, doing the things he does against what he learned. He does take those into practice, though, of course, like his ninja fighting ways. But there's something about that scene when he first fights Bane and he can't take it and his guys are watching and Bane's beating him down and he breaks his back and he's telling him all these things and where they come from the same kind of place, but he knows that he just has a lot of good lines. And Christopher Nolan, as well as his brother Jonathan, did a really good job writing for this movie, The Dark Knight Rises. Like, I can say so much more. It's just a really good movie, and I just have to. I'm going in my head about all the images and all the different themes, and so I'm not going to go into it right now. But I know a couple more films on here. Oh, okay. So there's one more film on here, and of course we have to mention it. This is also going to make the top 10, no doubt, the top 10. Breakfast at Tiffany's. If you really know me, you can see right here on the top of the screen, there's Audrey Hepburn in that image. As, oh man, I'm forgetting her name right now. Holly Golightly, excuse me. You can see her as Holly Golightly in Breakfast at Tiffany's here, one of my favorite films, one of my favorite performances of all time. I think Audrey Hepburn's voice is fantastic. I really enjoy the sound of a good voice, especially a woman's voice, and Audrey Hepburn just blows me away with the words that she says. How she forms her sentences, how she delivers it, her enunciation, her voice, and she has a phenomenal voice, and she sings too in this movie, and I fall in love every time, honestly. That's really one of the major reasons I love this movie is Audrey Hepburn's performance. All the things she does is so sweet and playful, and yet she can be, sad and mean. There's a whole range of emotions for her in this film, and I love the opening sequence, and it's just credits. But her getting dropped off in front of Tiffany's, eating her donut, drinking her coffee, and the music playing, and the credits are rolling. Her with her iconic sunglasses and pearls and black dress. It's on. I don't want to say it, but it is perfect. Yeah, there's some really interesting things that go on in that film as well. Of course, good story. It's about writers. Any movies about writers I kind of like as well. I mean, I know she's not the writer, her friend is. But and it's I mean what I never really thought about too. It's kind of about a call girl, back in the day. It's not as explicit in the film, but I mean I don't care. So I think that's really all I have to say right now about those films. I'm not really sure how I've been going for 20 minutes. Can you believe that? Oh my god. Well, you know what? Let's go for 30. Why not? But that's going to be it for films, for movies. Might talk about movies. The list is going to be, like, of course, if you go check out the vlog, you'll see more of what else made the list. And then, of course, there'll be more future content explaining where they rank 100 to number 1. And then I'll go in depth on the top 10 list and why they sit where they sit. So I'm trying to put my stuff away. Okay. So besides that, if you haven't already, go vote. I voted already through the mail. Here, I got my sticker. I voted. Boom. So go vote yourself any way you can. I'm sure there's a bunch of information if you go to either joebiden.com or donaldtrump.com. Whatever you want to do. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But yeah, I think besides that, oh, you know what? I want to show you something really cool. Okay, this was pulled off screen, unfortunately. Pokemon card content, if you're here to stay. If you can believe it. Pulled a Butterfree. Can you see it? A Butterfree. A Butterfree. VMAX. I was in shock when I pulled this. I wish I had recorded it. I didn't. I lived in the moment. I experienced it, but I was blown away. I finally got a Butterfree VMAX. Now all I need is the Butterfree V card. That's all I need. And I'm set. This is what I wanted. I should have recorded it. But there it is. And I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for stopping by. You know what? No, I said I would go for 30 minutes. Didn't I? Let's try to fit in a short story here. Okay. Okay. So, a coworker of mine, he mentioned one day about what the next podcast is going to be. And I had said I wanted to maybe say more about my time living in San Bernardino and Redlands. And I'll give you a little story, but it's somewhere in the middle, I suppose, of all that whole year. It's really in a slot of a whole year. Like, I lived down there. Let's say it was like a year and a half. Okay. No, it was a full year. It was one full year, I remember. Because I'd left around June 2016. And then I had come back to Salinas July 2017. So it had been a full year. You know what? Let's get into a little bit of it for these last few minutes that we're here on the podcast. So I had been living in a house. I'd been renting a room. And that's a whole separate story in itself. But I was moving out. I'd packed my car full of mostly everything that I owned. The one thing, the couple things I couldn't take were like my pieces of furniture. I had a great chair in that house. I really, really bummed out that I had to leave that chair. I've had to leave behind a lot of good furniture in my life. And I'm only 25. Can you believe that? So I packed everything, my whole car with everything I had, like back to front, floor covered, everything. And Django sitting in the front seat, passenger side with me. And we'd driven all the way down to Redlands to live with my best friend, Zach Pappas. He was living in a house with a girl. He was renting the room, and I was going to go live with him. I was going to just share the room. It was a huge room. We were just going to split it. Nice little place. It was an all right place. It was all right. I'm being nice. It was an all right place. But I had driven down there and I pulled up. It was like 6 p.m. The sun was just kind of coming down a little bit. It was really really hot, and I just went to bed. I took a nap. I'm gonna fast forward a bit. So anyway, I set up a transfer from my job to. Well, I don't know if I should say here, but I'm gonna say a restaurant. I moved to. You know what? We gotta be real, right? Red Lobster, fucking Red Lobster. All right. So I transferred to a Red Lobster down south in San Bernardino. Specifically, I had been living in Redlands with my best friend, and I transferred there. And so I didn't have a job for like the first 2 weeks. Like they you have to move things around and you got a schedule and this and that. So, but they knew I was coming on. Like it was all good. We're all set up. This isn't about the job. All right. I don't want to mislead you on the story. I'm just giving you some context. So, the first couple of weeks, just kind of messed around, explored a little bit. I got used to the neighborhood, walked Django, played video games with Zach. I think at the time, he was working at a place called Jimmy John's. And, okay, to tell you the truth, this was like my first time leaving Salinas. So it was very strange. I'm sorry I'm kind of going everywhere with this, but more context. This is the first time I'm living in a different place, and so I don't have that much money. I probably used some of the money to pay the rent for that first month that I was living there. And I had a little money, and I have no money, but I had a little money. I was waiting for that job to, like a couple weeks, right? So we have a couple weeks of not doing anything. And so we had a luxury. Zach would bring home bread from Jimmy John's, like bread they were about to throw out. It wasn't old bread, but it was some, like the loaf of breads. There was like these thick brown bread, and he would have a box of it, and that's mainly what we would eat. That was like, we would put peanut butter on it, we'd put butter on it, put some ham and turkey. Why not? That was the best. I think that was like one of the prime, like low times of that time living down there in Redlands and San Bernardino was, like I said, if you follow me on Instagram, I posted some photos of like this whole series of photos of all these different things, like that whole year, so vivid in my mind because I had done so much stuff. I had done so much. I had met so many people and these little things that I had never done before, and going out and just very specific stories. So anyway, this story in particular, sorry, I'm trying to get to it. So I'm living in this house with Zach, with my dog Django, with this other girl who also has like 3 cats. 2 of them are inside cats, and one of them kind of goes in and out. He's like an outside cat. So, they get along, Django and the cats, and they're fine inside. And I think at the time, this girl, she was staying at her boyfriend's place or her friend's place or something or other most of the time. So in those 2 weeks, those first 2 weeks that I was living there, she wasn't really around. So it's kind of me and Zach have like the middle of the house. We would have the bread. We'd play video games, watch a movie, mess around, kill time. I'm not working yet. And then I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure exactly what night this was. Probably 2 weeks in. Probably almost 2 weeks in. Like I'm about to probably start my job pretty soon. And one night, Zach and I had come back to the house, and we got a 6-pack. We're sitting in front of the television, and we're drinking, we're having fun, we're playing video games, and I hear something kind of in the kitchen, and then I see that the back door is open, kind of open. And then we get up and we kind of freak out because these 2 cats, I guess, they're not supposed to get out. The ones that are inside, you got to be careful. And so we went out there, we went out to the door that we know all the cats they're gone. We don't know where they are. We're calling their names. And one of them does come back, I believe. But the other one doesn't. Like, we're calling the cat's name. It's not coming back. So we have two cats. We have Django. The other cat's kind of out there somewhere. We're calling the cat. We went around the block. This is like really late at night. I don't know how late, but we're going around the block. It's dark. We can't find the cat. We're calling the cat. The cat isn't coming. So we go inside and we're talking about it. And I think Zach mentioned, like, this has happened before. Like, these cats have gone out before. And I think, you know, this girl, I'm not going to say her name, this girl, she mentioned, if the cats get out again, then, like, you're out of here. I think that's what she said to Zach. And I didn't know about this. I'm not blaming Zach. He's my best friend. I'm not blaming him. This is just the story, you know. This is just the case. But the cats get out. That cat got out, and we didn't know where it was. We were calling it. We didn't know where it was. We're trying to figure out what to do. If we should tell this girl that her cat's gone. And we decided not to. We're trying to solve the problem before she finds out. And so the next day, like, we went out and looked for it too. I don't know what we did about it. I think we called a couple places to see if anyone picked up a cat. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But I think eventually Zach confessed to her, like, the next day, sometime in the afternoon or middle afternoon, that the cat got out. And we couldn't find it, and we needed her help. And so she comes over in, like, a rage. She pulls into the driveway and she starts screaming at us. We come out and we try to explain ourselves, right? But she does not care. And so she starts screaming at Zach and kind of at me too about letting the cats get out, and this was your responsibility, and what did you do? We were supposed to be watching them, this and that, and this has happened before. And she was like, you're out of here. You're out of here. Like, pack, like, that's it. Pack your stuff. Like, you have 2 weeks. Boom, you're out of here. That's it. I'm not having it. Like, I knew this would happen, this and that. And we couldn't even explain ourselves. We could do nothing. She was pissed. She was sad. She was crying. You know, her cat's gone. We don't know. And then she left. She was gone. She was like, I'm going to go to try to find this cat. And I think we went around looking for this cat together. And then at a certain point, me and Zach kind of gave up. Because this girl was just not having it. And so we went inside the house. And we have 2 weeks left to live in this place. And we have to find a new place. And I had just moved here. Not even 2 weeks ago. And so immediately Zach and I are like now looking for an apartment to live in together. Like a 1-bedroom, even a 2-bedroom. Like we have like a range of our budget, of course. And in those 2 weeks, we visited a number of apartments. Probably like 3 or 4 different apartment complexes. All very different. One of them didn't even have a stove, and it was like straight up purple. Like the walls were purple. And the last place we ended up on, it was in San Bernardino, like the very like top of San Bernardino, if you know how it looks, right? I can't remember, 31st Street? I can't remember. But we lived up there. We found an apartment. It was $1,000. $1,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment, and it was huge. I think it was huge. Like for a 1-bedroom, it was like a big room, huge room, you know, a good little hallway, and then the bathroom in there, and then the sink, and then you have a huge living room, a lot of space, big windows, a sliding door, you know, a nice little kitchen. It was a nice place for $1,000, and we lived there. We shared the room. You know, we had a number of configurations inside of furniture. We ended up getting a free couch from the neighbors across the way, a love seat. We had that for a while. It was like a white leather couch, kind of uncomfortable sometimes, but eventually we got another couch. We'll get into that in the future, hopefully. But we ended up finding an apartment in those 2 weeks, a $1,000 apartment. It was a nice little place, honestly. I'll give it that. It had a little bit of faults here and there. Like it was next to the highway, for example. It was like a constant stream of traffic. It was almost like the sound of the ocean, but just not quite the same. And yeah, we were on the 3rd floor. It was hot as hell, living in San Bernardino. Had a nice view of the mountains. We had a nice balcony. We spent a lot of time out there. That was like the prime spot, is the balcony, sitting out there in the afternoons, in the mornings, at night. Yeah, even though, yeah, it was good. It was nice. But I think that's it, really. I'm going to try to wrap this up. I know I've been here for quite some time. This is very unordinary, but I did have a lot to say. Our mood and our energy was very, very low, I think, at the beginning. But now that I started, now that I'm going, it's a lot easier. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Come back sometime in the future, or maybe if you're watching this in the future now, come join the other videos and watch some old content. But here I am, at the real Mr. Jaime here on YouTube, on Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, everything. The link tree is in the bio. Go check it out. There's a lot of different content there. And I guess, should I open one more pack? No. Because I don't know. It could be bad. I want to end on a good note. So, thank you again for passing through One Horse Town Podcast. I am your host, as always. Well, it sounds weird to say host. I want to feel like I want to try to build a theme with this podcast. I want to make it seem like it's a town, like an actual little town, like a one-horse town. Like I live here, Django lives here. It's like it has a saloon. It's like the 1800s, basically. It has a saloon. It has a barber shop, pharmacy. What else do you need? A gun store, gunsmith. What else do you need? We have a jail. We got a bounty poster thing. So, but there was a war nearby, and most of the town were guys, I guess. I'd been traveling at the time. But I'm the only one who lives here. Django lives here. All the guys had gone to war. All the women were either dead or taken or something horrible. That's the 1800s. What can I tell you? But I'm the only one who resides here at the time. People come and go. They pass through sometimes to get to the bigger cities. And if you have some time to stop by, get some water, maybe stop at the saloon or the gunsmith, you can come by my place and I can chat your ear up for some time and you can go back on your way. So let's try to do that. Thank you so much. You take care and enjoy the rest of your day, night, and evening.